Everyone, it's I, Wakame What If, here to present you with What If Deku had the infinite item quirk. Let's go ahead and get into this. Currently, Midoriya is staring outside of his window at the moon, wondering what just happened. A few months ago, he was diagnosed as quirkless, and everything just fell apart. His friends all avoided him like he was the plague. His best friend Kacchan bullied him with all of his previous friends, and majority of them just ignored him, and the teacher overall ignored the whole situation, is what Midoriya was thinking while looking at the moon. He always went home and ate, and then went up to his room and looked at the moon. It was the only activity he really thought of. He used to draw, but every time he drew something, Kacchan would just tear it up the next day when he brought it to school. And he used to play with toys, but all the toys would be broken by Kacchan immediately when he came to visit him. Inko is currently very unaware of the situation, but Midoriya didn't have the heart to tell Inko that he has no friends. All of his friends abandoned him once he was quirkless, once he was diagnosed quirkless. So all he does is go in his room, look at the moon, and cry, like he's currently doing today. But today would change. It's currently in December. It's actually Christmas currently, and all that Midoriya can do is look at the moon and cry. He immediately thought in his head, the only thing I really want is a quirk that can make me a hero. I just want to be a hero. I'll become one without a quirk or with a quirk, but I prefer if I had one so my mom would be at ease when I become one, is what Izuku was saying while looking out the window. Immediately he hears a knock at his door, and Inko immediately says, I got you gingerbread cookies. And immediately Izuku just wipes his eyes and says, I hope she never gets to witness my pain. As he walks up to the door, opens the door, and lets her in. She immediately looks at Izuku and sees that his eyes are swollen, and she says, have you been crying again? While Izuku just says, no, I haven't been crying. I was just crying tears of joy. After all, it's Christmas. Everyone's happy on Christmas, he says with a faint smile, while Inko's heart feels like it's shattering when she's looking at him. She immediately says, here's some gingerbread cookies and some milk. You should go ahead and go to bed, and, well, maybe Santa will give you something nice, she says with a faint smile of her own, while she walked out and immediately closed the door behind her very subtly and said, get a good night rest. Immediately Izuku started scarfing down on the gingerbread cookies and immediately started thinking, I need to get better at acting if I'm gonna try to hide this. He scarfed down all the cookies, drank all the milk, and he immediately put it right next to his bed and he went to sleep. Immediately after he went to sleep, something ominous was happening somewhere else. Currently Santa, who's in his sleigh, traveling through the air with his reindeer, is fighting someone that's very, very anti-Christmas-like. It's someone known as Shigaraki. Currently Shigaraki, All For One, are in confrontation with All Might on Christmas. Well, mostly All For One. Shigaraki's in the background, dealing with some hero grunts. Immediately Shigaraki sees Santa flying through the air, and he says, hey, Dabi, do you think your flames can reach all the way up there? Well, Dabi said, yeah. Also, what is that? Shigaraki immediately says, don't be alarmed, that's actually Santa. While Dabi says, wait, Santa existed? Are you kidding me? That Santa doesn't exist. While Shigaraki says he's not about to. He's about to cease to exist. As he tells Dabi to fire, Dabi immediately fires his flames directly into the sky, and it ends up hitting all of Santa's reindeers and burning them severely. Immediately Santa's sleigh goes out of control and he starts to crash, and he says, oh no, I'm gonna crash, and all these presents are gonna be dispersed everywhere. I've got to deliver them to all the kids. And I've got to manage to stay alive to do that. He immediately tells Rudolph that if they don't make it from this crash, to immediately deliver his bag towards one innocent soul and give them the quirk that he had. He removes the bag from out of his suit and throws it towards Rudolph. Rudolph separates from the other reindeer, and Santa crashes downwards directly right at All for One. Right into All for One. He changed directions to All for One and crashed into him, while All Might was doing a Detroit smash at All for One. And All for One barely had the upper hand, was about to kill All Might, until Santa's sleigh crashed directly into him, and so did all the reindeers. And immediately, All for One was flung 5 feet away from the area, while Santa was unconscious, and was all the way near death. When he got out of his sleigh, he immediately looked up and saw All Might. And All Might ran towards him and lifted him up and said, "Who are you, old man? Are you okay? Are you hurt? Are you injured anywhere?" Immediately lifting him up, he saw a gaping hole in Santa's side. He immediately says, "We can get you to a hospital." He started trying to carry Santa towards the hospital, but Santa immediately puts his hand in front of his face and says, "It's not necessary. I'm gonna die. After all, I've been getting weaker because no one believes in me anymore." While All Might says, "I don't know what you mean, getting weaker." While immediately Santa says, "I'm actually Santa Claus. I actually have a quirk that allows me to live for as long as someone believes in me. And I also had a separate quirk that was from my dearly departed wife, Mrs. Claus. She had a quirk known as the Infinite Item Bag. It immediately made an item that had infinite gifts, and I immediately started spreading those gifts around the world when she let me borrow the quirk. But once she died, the quirk passed to me, and I gave Rudolph, my reindeer, the quirk to pass to a young man. If you see him anywhere in the future, please make sure that he goes to UA and becomes a hero. Don't let him stray from the path of a hero." As Santa falls down and starts to fade, while All Might looks at him in disbelief that this is Santa Claus that's dying in front of him, he immediately still tries to lift up Santa and starts trying to sprint away towards a hospital. Once he gets all the way to the UA hospital, he runs in, and everyone tries to barrage him with autographs. He pushes everyone aside, goes to the doctor, and says, "This guy needs emergency surgery, stat." While the doctor says, oh no, there's so much blood coming out of him, we can't do this, and he seems to be fading away. What's his quirk? It could be a symptom of it." While immediately All Might said, "His quirk, it's Santa." He had a quirk that immediately let him live for as long as people believed in him. While the doctor said, "Santa?" All Might, I think you've probably just tired from your hero work, but I'll see what I can do nonetheless. The doctor took him off of All Might's hand and started doing operations on him. Santa immediately, before I could even say it, we cut to Izuku. Currently Izuku is still in his bed asleep, while Rudolph is running all across the neighborhood trying to find an innocent soul. Since Rudolph has the ability called Soul Search, he can search for innocent souls and he can see them. He can visibly see someone's soul if they're evil or good. That's one of his powers as a magical reindeer. He has that ability, and he has the ability of flight. He starts to look around, he can't see anything, until he sees a window that's completely closed, but he sees inside the house there's a soul, pure of heart, but seems to be bothered by weight of a lot of depression. Immediately Rudolph gets intrigued and goes towards the door and immediately tries to knock on it with his hoof. Once he does, no one answers, and he thinks maybe he's asleep, so he knocks a little bit harder, and immediately Izuku wakes up and gets up out of his bed. He walks down the stairs because he heard a knock at the front door. Once he's down the stairs, he's in the living room. He looks through the peephole, he sees no one, until all of a sudden a reindeer just immediately puts its face towards the door right at the peephole, scaring Izuku. He jumps back and he starts screaming, while Rudolph just says, "Hey, hey, hey, don't be alarmed, it's just me. I'm Rudolph." While Izuku said, "Yeah, right, Santa doesn't exist." While Rudolph just says, "Yes, he does, and I know you believe in him. I can see your soul. Immediately, you should believe in him. After all, I see belief in you. Unlike all the other kids around this neighborhood." While Izuku just slides at the door and says, "I used to believe in him more. It's just, if Santa really existed, then how come people are still quirkless? Why doesn't he gift them quirks? Why doesn't he make the world a better place by delivering more joy than just one time a year?" While Rudolph merely says, "Well, it's because it was a condition of his power. It only works once a year." Well, Mrs. Claus's power only worked once a year. As Rudolph sighs and deeply looks downwards, once he immediately hears Izuku say, "Huh, what do you mean?" Rudolph immediately fills in Izuku, and Izuku opens the door to see a crying Rudolph. He immediately runs towards Rudolph and hugs him. Rudolph immediately embraces Izuku as well. He says, "I was mainly sent here to find someone that's worthy to inherit this." While Izuku says, "Inherit what?" as he pulls out the pouch, Santa's pouch. And immediately Izuku said, "Isn't this Santa's pouch?" And immediately Rudolph said, "It's known as the Infinity Item Quirk. Once the person touches it, the quirk chooses, it will merge with them and you can summon the bag whenever you want. The quirk didn't choose me. It only chose Mrs. Claus and Mr. Claus. But since both of them are out of commission, do you want to become a hero? After all, I could see in your soul you want to become one very desperately. That you become one even without a quirk. Do you want to inherit this quirk?" While immediately Izuku said, "Yes, I do. I would like nothing more but to inherit this. I'll become a hero." And immediately Rudolph said, "Here you go then. Hold out your hand." While Izuku holds out his hand, immediately Rudolph drops the bag into his hands, and a golden glow envelops the bag, and immediately on the front of Izuku's right hand, there appears a Santa's bag, a mark of it. And immediately Izuku says, "Wow, that golden glow was beautiful." And immediately Rudolph said, "Yeah, it was quite beautiful, wasn't it? Anyway, I think I might have to go back. I think Mr. Claus might need me. I hope he's still doing well." While Midoriya said, "Are you sure you have to go back? Are you sure about that?" While Rudolph said, "Yeah, I'm sure I have to go, but I'll see you around soon." He immediately starts to dash off, straight through the entire snowstorm that's currently going on. The reason why Midoriya was mostly held up into his room was not just because of depression, because of the snowstorm. And immediately when Rudolph was going quickly towards the hospital that he knew that Santa would be in, because when he was running, he sensed that since All Might's soul nearby. It was one of the people he was thinking about picking, but he realized what One For All would do if they had another quirk user. So he restrained. He started traveling through the snowstorm. He started desperately trying to go to Santa, right to the hospital. He started thinking back on when Santa met him when he was just a child, and immediately gave him a home, a family, and a job to deliver joy to children all over the world. He started thinking about how Prancer and him would immediately start to make jokes, have hot chocolate, marshmallows. They would hang out with Mrs. Claus and Mr. Claus. While he started still running through the blizzard, he was thinking about all these things. Once he reached the hospital, he immediately knocked on the door of the hospital. And once he knocked on the door, everyone immediately looked out the door and saw that there was a deer. Everyone immediately said, "It's just an animal. Don't let it in." While one person said, "It's an animal with intelligence. It could have a quirk, or it could be a quirk user." One little boy lets him in, and immediately says, "Come on in. You need to go somewhere important, right?" And immediately, the reindeer immediately runs in, thinking he was going to be rejected. He was about to walk away and try to see if he could fly through the window. But that kid immediately let him open. The kid with a scar on the side of his face. Once Rudolph saw that scar, he was a little pissed, but he didn't have time. He ran through the hospital immediately and saw someone, a person with a scar also on his face. But this one seems to be a pro hero. He has flames coming out of him. It's the pro hero Endeavor. Immediately he saw him and immediately spat at him with disgust. While Endeavor said, "A reindeer just spat at me." How was that possible? He walked up towards the reindeer and started having flames coming out of him. He said, "I'm not going to let that disgrace go." He tried to punch the reindeer directly in the face, but the reindeer immediately just immediately used his back hooves and kicked Endeavor in the balls. And Endeavor immediately got to the ground and said, "My balls, my endeavors." He started to scream out so loud that all the hospital staff ran towards him, and they had to go get surgery for him a few hours later. But he was known as the One Endeavor Wonder. The One Nut Wonder, or the Flaming Nut Wonder is what he was mainly called. While immediately Rudolph ran into Santa's room and saw Santa on the bed. Apparently the surgeries were successful. They were successful. He survived, but he seems to be inside of a coma. Rudolph was on top of Santa's bed, laying down directly beside him, and he whispered, "I hope you'll be okay." I passed the quirk on to Izuku Midoriya. I think he'll be worthy. I really hope he will. Later on, the next day, Izuku woke up and immediately got out of bed and started thinking, I need to become a hero. Not just for myself anymore, not just because it's my ambition, but because now there's more people counting on me. And that's the end of What If Deku Had the Infinite Quirk, Item Quirk, Part 1.